He arrived at the restaurant and received a message, which made him realize that the night would end before it even began. His date had been cancelled at the last minute. He was already heading to his car when he heard sobs coming from the parking lot. A woman in a blue dress and a headband with her 2 small children was wiping her own tears. Something about the scene made him stop. The night that promised to be empty ended up taking a new direction, unexpected and profoundly human. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Caleb was not the type to go on blind dates. It had been 2 years since he lost his wife, and since then, he could never look to the future without feeling a tightness in his chest. The days passed slowly in his silent house, where every corner held memories he didn't have the courage to erase, but that hurt to recall. Caleb kept everything as if somehow it could preserve her presence. He worked a lot as an accountant in a mid-sized company, often staying late just to delay returning to the empty house. He took care of the home which was once filled with laughter, all by himself. His closest friends noticed how he talked more to the plants on the porch, a legacy from Alice, his wife, than to any person. "You're still young, Caleb. You're only 38. "Alice wouldn't want to see you like this," said Ryan, his college friend, in one of the many attempts to pull him out of that cocoon of solitude. Caleb always responded with a half-smile, thanked for the concern, but never continued the conversation. It wasn't easy to explain that it wasn't just about being alone, it was about having lost a part of himself so abruptly that no new presence seemed capable of filling it. But his friends insisted that he needed to try, that he deserved at least a new conversation, a casual coffee, an informal meeting. One day, he agreed to a meeting only because it wasn't exactly a romantic date. It was just a coffee, a conversation, no pressure, as Ryan repeated countless times, and because they said she was also starting over, trying to rebuild life after different but equally painful losses. Paige, from the other side of the story, was also not a fan of blind dates. Divorced for 2 years, after years of living in a cold, exhausting and demanding marriage, she had left it with custody of the children, Mason, 6 years old, and Bella, 4, 2 suitcases of clothes and her self-esteem in shambles. Her ex-husband, a successful businessman whom she had married too young, had moved to another city with his new girlfriend, leaving behind not only bills but emotional wounds that Paige fought daily to heal. At 35, she worked part-time in a salon as a manicurist, did nails at home in the evenings, and was constantly trying to prove to her family, especially to her sister and mother, that she wasn't an irresponsible person who had ruined her own marriage, and that she was trying to be a good mother, a good professional, a good daughter, just trying to survive with dignity. But no one seemed to believe her. No one seemed to see the effort, only the weight. "You should have endured more," her mother said, not understanding the depth of the suffering Paige had endured for years. "Now look, there you are, alone, with 2 children to raise." Each word was a blow to an already fragile self-esteem. In the rare moments when she was alone, usually late at night, Paige allowed herself to cry silently, so the children wouldn't hear. The small rented apartment she could barely maintain was the perfect picture of her current life. Functional but incomplete. The walls lacked pictures, the furniture was sparse, bought on sale or donated by acquaintances. But she did her best to make the place feel like a home for her children. The blind date was set up by Melissa, a friend from the salon, who said that Caleb was a good man, respectful, calm, a loyal friend of her husband Ryan. Paige accepted because she wanted to feel a woman again. Not beautiful, not desired, just alive. Just someone beyond a mother, a problematic daughter, or an ex-wife. That Friday she allowed herself a special treat. She bought a simple but pretty blue dress on sale. It was the first time in a long while she spent money on herself without feeling immediate guilt. She styled her brown hair with a delicate headband, applied discreet lipstick, almost as a ritual of self-reunion. The children watched her, fascinated. "Mum looks like a princess," exclaimed Bella, her eyes shining. Mason, more serious and protective as always, asked where she was going. Paige explained that she was going to have coffee with a friend of Melissa's, but would return soon. Everything fell apart when she left the children with her sister Victoria, who started criticizing her once again, just as Paige was about to leave. "You're always asking me for things," the sister complained, arms crossed at the door of her spacious and comfortable house. "I can't look after these kids every time you decide to change plans." "I just asked for 1 hour," Paige replied, feeling her stomach sink. She rarely asked for help to work, never to go out. She had explained the situation days before, and Victoria had agreed to help. Meanwhile, Caleb received a message from his friend while he waited at a discreet table in the restaurant, a simple yet cozy place that Ryan had suggested. Paige cancelled. "Sorry, man." He just nodded, looking at the phone screen with a neutral expression. His life was already full of cancellations, of plans, of dreams, of conversations that never happened. It wasn't this that would hurt. But it did hurt a little. A subtle twinge surprised him, as it indicated that perhaps deep down he was finally ready to try again, to risk feeling something beyond the pain he already carried. Caleb asked for the check, left a generous tip, a habit he maintained from the times when he and Alice used to go out for dinner, and walked out of the restaurant, feeling the cool night air touch his face. The sky was starry, with a crescent moon casting a silver light over the nearly empty parking lot. It was then that he walked towards the car and heard a woman's cry, muffled, desperate, the kind that one tries to hide, but the world hears nonetheless. He turned his face, instinctively searching for the source of that sound that pierced the night's silence. That's when he saw a woman sitting on the curb, holding 2 children. She looked exactly as his friend had described, blue dress, headband, and a sweet demeanour despite the overflowing vulnerability. It was her. The woman who was supposed to meet him there. The delicate dress contrasted with her defeated posture. Her shoulders were slumped, her head bowed, her trembling hands trying simultaneously to hold the children and wipe away her own tears. She tried to take a deep breath to clean her face without frightening her children. She didn't seem to realize that someone was watching her. Caleb stood still, feeling his stomach twist. Not because of the scene, but because of the unexpected urge to help and to recognize a pain he knew all too well. That feeling of helplessness, of having to face the world when all you want is to disappear for a moment. The little boy then asked quietly, his small voice revealing a premature concern for someone so young. "Mommy, are we going home now? Who are we staying with?" The woman closed her eyes tightly, and more tears escaped, leaving glistening trails on her face under the light of a nearby lamppost. "Yes, we're going, my love." Caleb took 2 steps in their direction but hesitated. He didn't want to seem intrusive or frighten her even more. The last thing a woman alone in a parking lot needs is a stranger approaching her abruptly. Even so, his voice came out before he could control it. "Are you... Paige?" The woman looked up, startled, instinctively pulling the children closer. Her eyes, a deep brown that Caleb noticed even from a distance, were red and swollen, and when she nodded, embarrassed, Caleb felt a pain in his chest. "I'm sorry," she murmured, trying to pull herself together quickly, smoothing her dress as if she could erase the creases that time spent sitting on the ground had left. I really was going to come in. I tried so hard to come." She pinched her nose, sobbing, and she whispered softly, so her children, who were now distracted with a pebble on the ground, wouldn't hear. "But I had a problem. Sorry for ruining our date. I left the kids with my sister, but there was an unforeseen event and she called saying she couldn't stay any longer and..." Her voice broke. "And asked to leave them here immediately." She didn't want to say it, but her sister left the nephews there in the restaurant's parking lot saying, "I'm not your children's babysitter." She was out of patience that day. That was the reason she cancelled. Caleb took a deep breath, slowly, because at that moment he realised that, even though he was there to meet her for other reasons, there was something in her painful sincerity that reached him in an intimate and unexpected way. "You didn't ruin anything," he said calmly. He knelt down to be at the boy's eye level, who was watching him with curious and wary eyes. "Hi, champ. I'm Caleb." The boy did not respond immediately, but his defensive posture softened a little. The younger girl peeked from behind her brother, with her thumb in her mouth and wide-eyed. The children watched him with curiosity and caution. Paige quickly wiped her face, trying to appear strong, smoothing her children's hair in an automatic gesture of protection. She got up and started to say goodbye, knowing that she had just destroyed any chance of Caleb wanting to meet her after witnessing such a problematic situation. But something unexpected happened. "They must be hungry," he whispered, looking at the watch on his wrist. "Come, let's go inside and eat something, all of us." Paige widened her eyes, grabbing the small handkerchief she kept in her purse to dry her face with more determination. "No, really, I look terrible. I'm crying. The kids are tired. You must be about to leave." "Paige," he raised his eyebrows with a slight smile, "I came here to meet you, and that's what I'm doing now." Paige took a deep breath, for the first time in a less painful manner. She looked at her children, who now seemed more at ease, and then at Caleb, as if trying to assess whether that offer was genuine. I really don't want to go back home the way I am, nor do I want to cook anything today." "Great," he replied, "because I don't know how to cook either. Let's save each other." The children giggled, and Paige, for the first time that night, did too. She took their hands and looked at Caleb as if finding a truce in the midst of chaos. "Thank you," she said, almost in a whisper. "You're welcome," he replied. "Everyone needs someone at some point. Today, I can be that someone." And as they walked back to the restaurant together, Paige realised that perhaps the blind date hadn't been cancelled. Maybe a friendship could develop there, and she admired him for his attitude. Caleb didn't quite understand why he had stayed. Maybe it was her vulnerability, so exposed and so sincere. Maybe it was the way she tried to wipe her tears so as not to scare the children. Maybe it was because, for the first time in a long while, he felt he was facing someone he knew, someone real, trying to deal with life. His friend Ryan, the same one who suggested the blind date, had described Paige with uncommon tenderness, saying that she was sweet, attentive, kind. He mentioned they had attended the same college as hers, but they never crossed paths, never talked, and that she had left everything to take care of her children when she got pregnant, a whole life she gave up for love, while the world labelled her as irresponsible for it. "She's trying to build herself up. Life hasn't been fair to her. She's very much our friend," the friend said, explaining that Paige was very close with his wife Melissa. Now, watching Paige run her fingers through her daughter's hair to calm her, he understood. Life had been too hard on her, and he knew exactly what it felt like, the world collapsing without warning, and you having to keep breathing with whatever is left. They dined together, the four of them, as if there were no other possible way to be there. The restaurant wasn't sophisticated, but it had a cosy atmosphere, with soft lighting and wooden tables that gave off a homely feel. Caleb chose a more secluded table, where the children could feel at ease without disturbing other customers. The children were well-mannered, talkative, full of imagination. Mason talked about his favourite dinosaur, with a surprising knowledge for his age. Bella drew colourful shapes with the pencils the waiter kindly brought along with the children's menu. Paige was shy, but she smiled occasionally, with those smiles that reveal who a person truly is, just the right amount of light even when tired. She talked about her work at the salon, how she loved to read in the rare moments of leisure, about her plans to return to studying someday when things settled down. Caleb spoke little about himself, but when she asked, he was honest. He said he had been married, loved deeply, and lost his wife suddenly. Paige gently held the napkin as if she understood that pain without needing an explanation, and they didn't need to say anything more. The conversation continued light, sincere, without trying to force anything. He talked about his work as an accountant, about the small vinyl record collection he kept, about how he started gardening after his wife's passing, something he never imagined he would do. At the end of the evening, when he walked them to the car, Paige's eldest son hugged him without thinking, thanking him for the dinner. Paige blushed, surprised, apologizing for the boy's spontaneous gesture. "Don't apologize," he said, smiling. "Children only hug those their heart approves of." She laughed softly and blushed again. Caleb took a deep breath, gathering courage, and then, "Paige, can I ask for your phone number?" She was so surprised that it took her a second to respond. Her cheeks turned rosy, and she looked away like someone not used to being desired, seen, chosen. "Are you sure?" she asked, almost in a whisper. "Absolutely," he said, firm and gentle. "I want to get to know you better." Slowly. She gave him her number. He saved it with an almost ceremonial care, as if that simple gesture was the beginning of something that should not be rushed. And that's where it began. Two gentle hearts, scarred by what they had lost, finding in each other a refuge they no longer expected to have. It wasn't easy. Nothing about starting over is. In the first few months, they met on Sunday afternoons, usually in parks where the children could play while they talked. Caleb learned to bring small snacks that Bella loved and books about dinosaurs that fascinated Mason. Paige discovered that he liked strong coffee without sugar and always brought a thermos specially prepared for him. They learned to converse, to respect each other's space, to understand the fears that dwell within someone who has been broken. Paige was apprehensive about trusting too much, about giving herself and being abandoned again. Caleb feared he couldn't love completely, as if a part of him would always belong to the past. Paige learned to trust his silence. Caleb fell in love with that woman wholly. There were difficult moments. Paige's family remained critical, especially when she began mentioning Caleb. "Already jumping into another relationship?" her mother questioned. "You can't even take care of what you already have." Caleb faced pitying looks from some friends who thought he was getting into trouble by getting involved with a woman with children. But they remained. The children adopted him before he even realized it. Mason began calling for help with math homework. Bella started drawing Uncle Caleb in all her artistic creations, and Caleb, who once knew how to love, relearned, not replacing the past, but embracing all possible futures. After some time together, he proposed to her. It was on an ordinary afternoon, while they were tidying up the small house he had bought, big enough for everyone. Paige was organizing the books on the shelf, when Caleb knelt down with a small box containing a simple yet elegant ring. "I want to build a life with you," he said. "A real life, with ups and downs, with fatigue and joy. I want to be by your side every day." Paige cried. The children, who were peeking secretly, ran to hug them. They got married on a simple, beautiful day, full of truth. No ostentation, no exaggeration. Two mature hearts that had survived the worst and now wanted to live the best. Paige's mother and sister attended, and seeing the couple's genuine happiness, they began to soften their criticism. Caleb's friends noticed that they had never seen him so at peace, so complete. They had 2 more children. 2 new smiles, 2 new stories within their story. Paige resumed her studies, finally graduating from the college she had abandoned. Caleb opened his own accounting firm, finally achieving a balance between work and personal life he never believed was possible. And at the end of it all, when life tested them, because life always tests, they discovered that nothing shook them like before. Because now she held his hand when the world felt heavy, and he held her hand when fear arrived, and their hands fit exactly where, perhaps, they should have always been. 2 souls that found each other when everything seemed to be falling apart. 2 lives rebuilt with love, patience, and truth. 2 hearts that took care of each other in the storm and learned to live together in the calm. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.